My son died 15 years ago in a devastating accident. I saw him in the casket, I felt his cold skin, and I threw dirt onto his grave. But last night, at 3:27 a.m., my cell phone rang. His name flashed on the screen, and when I answered, I heard his confused voice asking, "Mom, where am I? It's so dark in here." How can your heart keep beating when you hear the voice of someone you buried? But before we continue, make sure you've subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Sarah, and for 15 years I lived with a hole in my chest where my heart used to be. My son, Ethan, was only 17 when he died in a motorcycle crash. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy night and hit him head on. At that moment, my knees buckled when the phone rang at 11:42 p.m. It was the hospital. "Mrs. Sarah Miller, mother of Ethan Miller?" That question already contained the entire answer I didn't want to hear. They say there is a maternal instinct that warns us when something terrible happens to our children. In that moment, even before the doctor finished the sentence, I already knew. It was as if an invisible thread that had always connected me to Ethan was abruptly severed. The wake was a blur. I remember sitting next to the casket, unable to cry, staring at my boy's face. He looked like he was sleeping, except for the grayish tone of his skin and the heavy makeup trying to conceal the bruises. I spent the entire night stroking his icy hand, uselessly waiting for his fingers to close around mine, as they did when he was little and needed protection. At the cemetery, I threw a white rose onto the casket as they lowered it into the grave. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. The sound of the dirt falling onto the wood was the moment reality finally hit me like a train. My son was dead. I would never hear his laugh or feel his hug again. I would never see him graduate, get married, or have children. All that remained of 17 years of life were photographs, clothes with his scent, and memories that would fade with time. Ethan's father couldn't cope. 6 months after the funeral, David filed for divorce. He said he couldn't look at me without being reminded of the son we lost. Maybe he was right. I couldn't look at him either without feeling like someone was missing between us. Our 20-year marriage ended with a signature on cold papers, another death to add to my collection of losses. While David moved on, married again, and had other children, I remained trapped in that grave. Ethan's room remained untouched, a sanctuary frozen in time. His clothes were still in the closet, his worn sneakers next to the bed, his books on the shelf and on the desk. The math homework he never finished. I couldn't bring myself to get rid of anything. Every object seemed to hold a piece of him I refused to lose. Every Sunday, without fail, I visited his grave with fresh flowers. I cleaned the headstone, pulled the weeds, and talked to him as if he could hear me. I told him about the week, the small things that happened, the news of the world. Sometimes I brought a book and read aloud because Ethan always loved it when I read to him before bed. "You should move on," people told me, as if it were simple to leave behind the son who grew inside my womb, as if there were an expiration date for a mother's grief. I tried therapy, support groups, and antidepressants. Nothing healed that wound. I just learned to live with the pain, to carry it as a constant companion. For 15 years, I kept Ethan's cell phone number active. I paid the bill every month just so I could call occasionally and hear the voicemail message with his teenage voice. "Hey, you've reached Ethan. Leave a message and I'll call you back, thanks." Those few seconds of audio were like a portal to a world where he still existed, where his voice still vibrated in the air. Maybe it was madness, but it was my way of keeping him alive. People moved on, his friends graduated, got married, and had children. The world kept spinning without Ethan in it. I kept breathing, working as an elementary school teacher, existing in a limbo between life and death. I wasn't really living, just existing out of inertia, going through the days until I could be reunited with my son again. That's when it happened, on a Wednesday, August 14th, 15 years after the accident. It was exactly 3:27 a.m. when my cell phone rang, startling me from a restless sleep. In the darkness of the room, the screen's glow illuminated the name I never expected to see. Ethan. Not Ethan, do not answer, as I had renamed the contact years ago when I would call the number just to hear the voicemail. It was just Ethan, as if someone had restored the original contact. My heart shot up, pounding against my ribs like a caged animal. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. It couldn't be real. It had to be a dream, a mistake, some technical glitch. Or maybe sanity had finally abandoned me altogether after years of living with the ghost of loss. The phone kept ringing, relentless. 5, 6 rings. On the 7th, something inside me broke. I answered. For several seconds, I only heard slow, uncertain human breathing. "Hello," I whispered, my voice failing. More silence. And then, "Mom." The voice was his. There was no mistaking it. The same tone, the same slight drawl on the mom. "Mom, where am I? It's so dark in here." The air froze in my lungs. The walls of the room seemed to contract around me. This couldn't be happening. "Ethan?" That was all I could say as my entire body shook. "Yeah, it's me. I don't know where I am. I can't see anything. I'm cold. What happened to me?" I turned on the lamp next to the bed with shaking fingers, as if the light could dispel this madness. My mind raced in 1,000 different directions. It could be a cruel joke, someone who had stolen his number, an auditory hallucination caused by medication and sleepless nights. But that voice I would recognize anywhere. "Ethan, is that really you?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "How? How is this possible?" "I don't know, Mom." His voice sounded distant, confused. "I remember the crash. I remember the rain, the car lights coming toward me, then nothing, just darkness. And now I'm here, but I don't know where here is. I can't see anything. I feel like I'm trapped." A sob escaped my throat. I jumped up, staggering around the room while holding the phone as if it were a lifeline. "Ethan, you died 15 years ago. I buried you." Silence on the other end. A silence so dense I could almost touch it. "No, Mom, I can't be dead. I'm talking to you. I'm thinking, I'm feeling. I just can't move. Everything is tight around me." A shiver ran down my spine. Tight like a coffin. Oh my God, could it have been a mistake at the hospital? Someone prematurely declared dead? Stories of people being buried alive flooded my mind in a whirlwind of horror, but it wasn't impossible. I saw him at the wake. I touched his cold skin. He was buried 15 years ago. He couldn't be alive after all this time. "Where are you right now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you see around you?" "Nothing. It's completely dark. I feel wood. I'm lying on something hard. There's a strange smell of dirt and mildew. Mom, I'm scared." My blood froze in my veins. He was describing a casket. How could he know that? How could he be conscious after 15 years? "Calm down, my son." The words came out automatically, maternal instinct overriding the panic. "I'm going to help you. Just tell me how I can find you." "I don't know. I just remember the accident and then waking up here." "Mom, how long did you say it's been?" 15 years, Ethan. My voice failed. You died in 2010. I heard his breathing quicken, turning into gasps of desperation. "It can't be. It can't. I'm 17. How could I have lost 15 years of my life?" I grabbed the dresser to keep from falling. The situation was absurd, impossible, yet it was happening. My son's voice, my dead son, sounded over the phone with the same clarity as when he was alive. "Ethan, I'm going to look for you, okay? I'm going to find a way." Even I didn't believe what I was saying, but the desperation in his voice pushed me to promise anything. "Just don't hang up. Please, don't hang up." "The battery's dying, Mom." The panic was palpable in his voice. "The phone is flashing. I don't want to be left alone in here." "Wait, Ethan, how are you calling me? Where did you get a phone?" Questions exploded in my mind, searching for some logic in this madness. "It was in my pocket, my old cell phone. I don't know how it still works, but the screen says the battery is almost dead." His old cell phone, the same one that was buried with him at his request in his will, which he wrote at age 16 during a phase when he was obsessed with his own mortality. At the time, we thought it was just an adolescent whim, but we respected his wish. "Ethan, listen to me." I tried to organize my chaotic thoughts. "Do you remember Evergreen Memorial Park in Los Angeles? That's where we buried you, in the east wing near the big oak tree. If you are in the casket, that's where you are." "Cemetery." His voice trembled. "Am I really dead?" "I don't know, son. I don't know what's happening, but I'm going there right now." "Mom, the battery's almost..." His voice began to break up. I'm scared. Please help me. Ethan, hold on, I'm coming! I screamed into the phone, but only heard the call-ended signal. He had hung up or the battery had died. Trembling, I tried to call his number back. Nothing. Only the automatic message saying the number didn't exist, as if those brief minutes of conversation had never happened. I didn't stop to think about the logic or the impossibility of the situation. I threw a coat over my pajamas, grabbed the car keys, and ran out to the garage. It was nearly 4 a.m. when I drove like a maniac through the deserted streets of Los Angeles, running red lights, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. I truly wonder if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to be quiet, to maintain peace, or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. The cemetery would be closed at that hour, but I knew the night caretaker, Mr. Thompson. Over years of Sunday visits, we had created a silent friendship. He always let me stay a few minutes past closing time when I lost track of time talking to Ethan's grave. I parked haphazardly at the cemetery entrance and ran to the guard booth. Mr. Thompson was sleeping in a chair, but woke up startled by my desperate banging on the glass. Mrs. Miller, what happened? It's 4 a.m. I need to get in, Mr. Thompson, now. It's urgent. It's about my son. He looked at me as if I had lost my mind, and perhaps I had. Your boy, but Mrs. Miller, I know it sounds crazy, I interrupted, but I need to go to his grave now, please. Something in my desperate look must have convinced him because he nodded, grabbed a bunch of keys and a flashlight. I'll go with you. It's not safe to walk around here alone this early. I didn't have time to thank him. I was already running down the gravel path I knew so well, lit only by the light of the waning moon. Mr. Thompson was right behind me, panting, trying to keep up with my frantic pace. 15 years of visiting the same place creates a precise mental map. Even in the darkness, I would know how to find the way to Ethan's grave. Left at the Almeida Mausoleum, a relic from the cemetery's history, right at the angel statue, follow the cypress path to the big oak tree. And there, beneath the shadow of the century-old tree, was the marble headstone with his name, Ethan Eduardo Miller, 1993-2010. Beloved son, forever in our hearts. I fell to my knees in front of the grave, the world spinning around me. What did I expect to find? What was I looking for? A call from the afterlife didn't mean I could dig him up and find him alive. 15 years is too long. Even if there had been some mistake, even if he had been buried alive, a thought that sent shivers of horror down my spine, there would be no way to survive that long underground. Mrs. Miller? Mr. Thompson approached, worried. Are you all right? I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the earth over the grave, firm, intact soil, covered by a carpet of well-kept lawn that I had planted myself years ago. No sign of disturbance, nothing to indicate that someone or something had emerged from there. He called me Mr. Thompson, I murmured, without diverting my gaze from the grave. My Ethan called me less than half an hour ago, son. The caretaker placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice gentle. Mrs. Miller, you must have had a nightmare. It happens when we lose someone we love. It wasn't a dream, I screamed, pushing his hand away. I was awake. I answered the phone. It was his voice. I began to scrape the grass with my nails, trying to dig, to tear at the dirt with my bare hands. Madness, I knew it. A grave is nearly 6 feet deep. I would never reach the casket this way, but reason had abandoned me the moment I heard my son's voice on the phone. Mrs. Miller, please. Mr. Thompson grabbed my wrists, preventing me from continuing that useless attempt. You're going to hurt yourself. This isn't normal. And I collapsed in tears, staining my face with the dirt from my hands. He said it's dark. He said he's trapped. He's scared, Mr. Thompson. I sobbed uncontrollably. How can I leave him like this? How? The caretaker helped me up, holding me as I shook. I'm going to take you home. You're very distraught. Tomorrow everything will look different. But I knew it wouldn't be. Nothing would be the same after that call. If I couldn't dig up my son with my own hands, I needed to find another way to understand what was happening. His cell phone, I murmured as Mr. Thompson guided me out of the cemetery. It was with him in the casket. How could it work after all these years? How could it have battery? How could it have signal? The caretaker didn't answer, probably thinking I was delirious, and maybe I was. Maybe loneliness and grief had finally corroded what was left of my sanity, and I was hallucinating, creating an alternative reality where my son could still contact me in some way. I returned home in a stupor, my eyes fixed on the dark road ahead of me. Mr. Thompson insisted on following me with his car until he made sure I had safely entered the house. I promised him I would try to rest, that I would call my doctor in the morning, white lies to soothe a good man who was worried about me. As soon as I closed the door, I ran to the phone and tried calling Ethan's number again. Nothing, the same message that the number didn't exist. I tried 10, 20 more times, always with the same result. I sat in the kitchen, trembling, trying to sort through my thoughts. I needed help. I needed someone who would believe me, or at least pretend to believe me while I figured out what was happening. David, Ethan's father. If there was anyone who could understand, it would be him. Even with our relationship deteriorating after the divorce, we shared the love for our son. I looked at the clock. 5:12 a.m., too early for a normal call, but this had stopped being a normal situation. I dialed his number, which I still knew by heart even after so many years. After 4 rings, I heard his sleepy voice. "Sarah, is that you? What's wrong?" "David," my voice trembled. "I need to tell you something. It's going to sound crazy, but I need you to listen to me." I told him everything: the call, Ethan's voice, the phone in the casket, my desperate trip to the cemetery. I expected him to interrupt me, to call me crazy, to suggest psychiatric commitment. But David just listened in silence, breathing heavily on the other end of the line. When I finished, there was a long moment of quiet. "Do you believe me?" I finally asked, my voice small and uncertain. "I don't know what to believe, Sarah." His voice sounded strangely controlled. "But I know you wouldn't invent something like this, not about Ethan. I need your help. I need to understand what's happening. What do you want to do? Exhume the body." The words came out before I could think. "I need to be sure, David. I need to see what's down there." More silence. Then, "You know that's nearly impossible, right? We need judicial authorization. It's going to take time. And even if we get it, Sarah, after 15 years, there won't be much to see." "I know, but I need to try. If there's the slightest chance that some mistake occurred, I'll be there in an hour," he said, surprising me. "We'll talk in person." I hung up the phone and remained sitting in the dark kitchen, motionless, trying to process everything that had happened in that surreal dawn. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a vivid dream, that I had fallen asleep on the couch and my mind played a cruel trick on me. But I knew it wasn't true. The call had been real. The voice was Ethan's. My son was trying to contact me from somewhere between life and death. David arrived in less than an hour. His gray hair was disheveled, and there were deep dark circles under his eyes. When I opened the door, I saw the same man who had been my husband for 20 years, now older, with deeper expression lines. But his eyes had the same look, Ethan's eyes, which he had inherited from his father. "You look awful," he said, trying to ease the tension with humor. "You're not at your best either," I replied, letting him in. We sat in the living room, the silence heavy between us. It had been years since we had been like this, face to face, alone. Our rare meetings after the divorce always took place in public places, often with his new wife and children present. "Tell me every detail again," he asked, leaning forward with his elbows resting on his knees. I repeated the whole story, adding details I had forgotten the first time. The exact tone of Ethan's voice, his labored breathing, the description of the darkness and the cramped space. "The cell phone," David interrupted. "You said he has the cell phone in the casket." "Yes, don't you remember? It was one of the requests in his will." David nodded slowly. "I remember that strange phase when he wrote down what he wanted if he died. We thought it was just a teenage phase. We never imagined that he would actually die so soon," I finished. "An old Nokia, right? One of those indestructible ones." "Yes," I agreed, recalling the blue phone Ethan loved. "But still, David, 15 years underground, the battery wouldn't last that long. And how would he get a signal down there?" "It makes no sense," he agreed. Unless what? Unless it's not actually coming from the grave." David got up, pacing restlessly around the room. "Sarah, have you considered it might be something else? Someone playing a trick on you, maybe. Someone who knows about the cell phone buried with him." I shook my head vehemently. "No, David, it was his voice. No one could imitate it that way. And who would be that cruel? David ran his hand through his gray hair, a gesture that reminded me so much of Ethan that I felt a pang in my chest. So, what are you suggesting? That our son somehow managed to call you from inside the casket 15 years after dying? He paused, choosing his words. Sarah, you need to consider other possibilities. Maybe you need help. You think I'm crazy? It wasn't a question. I didn't say that. He sat down again, taking my hands in his, an intimate gesture we hadn't shared in years. I'm saying grief does strange things to the mind. You never got over his death. You never truly moved on. I pulled my hands away, moving apart. How did you move on with your perfect new wife and your perfect new children? That's not fair, Sarah. His voice hardened. I lost my son too. I suffered too. I just chose to deal with it differently. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. Tell me whether you have parents, grandparents, or older family members who deserve more respect than they currently receive from their families. Alternatively, tell me if you yourself are going through a situation in which you're not appreciated as much as you truly deserve. Fighting with David wouldn't help me find answers. And deep down, I knew he was right. It was an absurd, impossible story. Any rational person would doubt it. I'm going to try calling him again, I said, grabbing the phone in front of me. You'll see. I dialed Ethan's number one more time, putting it on speakerphone. The automated message played loud and clear. The number you have dialed is not in service. See? David said gently. Sarah, the phone in my hand began to vibrate, interrupting him. On the screen, the name Ethan flashed again. It's him, I screamed, practically dropping the device. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? David's face went pale. He was seeing it. There was no denying it. With trembling hands, I answered the call and put it on speaker. Ethan, I called out, my voice barely working. Mom! Dad! His voice sounded distant, choppy, as if the connection were bad. Mom, I managed to charge the phone a little. There's a light now. David brought his hand to his mouth, his eyes wide with shock. He was hearing the same voice I was. Ethan, I called louder. Your father is here with me. We're on speakerphone. Dad. His voice sounded more alert. Dad, is that really you? David swallowed hard, tears in his eyes. Yes, son, it's me. What's happening to me? Why are you saying I'm dead? I remember the crash, but then everything's confusing. I looked at David, not knowing what to say. How do you explain to someone they've been dead for 15 years? Ethan, David took the lead, his voice choked. You said there's a light now. What are you seeing? There's a type of flashlight here. It was in my jacket pocket along with the cell phone. I don't know how it still works, but I can see a little now. I'm in a wooden box. It's small. I can barely move. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. He was describing the casket. What else do you see? David asked, gripping my hand tightly. There's a white fabric, and I'm wearing... Wait, it's not my clothes. It's a suit. I never had a suit like this. The funeral clothes, the suit we bought for him to be buried in. David and I exchanged horrified glances. Ethan, my voice trembled. Try to push the lid. See if you can open it. We heard sounds of effort, groans, restricted by the small space. I can't. It's too heavy. It feels like there's something on top. Dirt, maybe. David took the phone from my hand, holding it closer to his face. Ethan, listen to me. We need to understand what's going on. How long have you been conscious in there? I don't know. His voice sounded frustrated. It's like I just woke up from a long, confusing dream. I remember parts of my life, school, friends, you guys, but a lot of things are blurry. It's like I've been asleep for a very long time. And the accident, what do you remember? It was raining. Coming back from Jessica's house, the bike slid on the curve. I saw the headlights coming at me very fast. Then pain, a lot of pain, and then nothing until I woke up here in the dark. The description matched exactly what we knew about the accident. The police reports, the witnesses' testimonies. Ethan, I called out, taking the phone back. What's the last date you remember? March 10th, 2010, a Wednesday. I had a physics exam the next day. David and I looked at each other again. March 10th, 2010. The day of the accident, exactly 15 years ago. And do you remember? I hesitated, unsure how to ask. Do you remember dying? Silence on the other side. Only his irregular breathing. I don't know. His voice was barely a whisper. Now I remember the pain. Then a floating sensation, like being pulled upwards, bright lights, voices I didn't recognize, and then darkness until I woke up here. Mom, Dad, am I really dead? How do you answer that? How do you tell your own son that yes, he died, he was mourned, cried for, and buried? Ethan, David took over, sparing me the reply. Something very strange is happening. We need to investigate. Do you think you can maintain contact with us? How much battery does the phone still have? 30%, I think. I don't know how it's still working after. How long did you say? 15 years, I replied, my voice failing. It's 2025 today, son. My God. He seemed to be trying to absorb the information. So, I would be 32 now. It's so strange to think about. It seems like just yesterday I was at school. For him, it truly had been yesterday. Time had stopped at the moment of the impact that took his life. 15 years in the blink of an eye. Ethan, David said, adopting a more practical tone. We need to find a way to verify all this, to understand what's going on. You said you have a flashlight. Can you look around you, see if there's anything else with you in the casket? I'll try. We heard sounds of restricted movement due to the small space. There are some dried flowers, a rosary, and an envelope. An envelope? I asked, surprised. What kind of envelope? It looks like a letter. My name is written on it. The handwriting is yours, Mom. The letter I had completely forgotten. The night before the funeral, I wrote a farewell letter to Ethan and asked for it to be placed in the casket. A final message to my son. Words I hadn't had the chance to say while he was alive. Can you open it? I asked, remembering the intimate and painful content of that letter written at the height of despair. Yes, I'm opening it. My dearest Ethan, he began to read aloud. If there is a world beyond this one, know that you are reading these words and feeling all the love your mother has for you. He continued reading, and every word was like a knife piercing my heart. Words written 15 years ago on a night of unbearable pain, now coming back to me in the voice of the very son they were addressed to. Biamam, sons, and one day, when my time comes, we will be together again. Until then, I will love you and miss you with every breath. Your mom, forever. His voice cracked as he finished reading. You wrote this for me. Yes, I confirmed, tears streaming freely down my face. The night before your funeral. So it's true. Ethan's voice sounded defeated. I'm really dead, buried. But then how am I conscious? How am I talking to you? It was the question that tormented all of us, a question for which we had no answer. I don't know, son, David replied, putting his arm around my shoulders in a protective gesture that surprised me. But we're going to find out. I promise you, we're not going to leave you alone in this. The battery's running out again, Ethan said, his voice suddenly alarmed. I only have 10% now. It's going to die soon. Ethan, listen, I spoke quickly. We're going to try to figure out what's happening. We're going to find a way to help you. Just don't despair. It's okay. We're here. We're going to find you somehow. I'm scared, Mom, he whispered, suddenly sounding like the little boy who used to run to my bed during storms. I'm scared of being left alone in the dark when the battery dies. I'm scared you won't be able to find me. We will find you, I promised, although I had no idea how to keep that promise. Just hold on. Try to save the battery. Only call if it's very important. Okay? Okay, he agreed, his voice weak. Dad, Mom, I love you. We love you too, son, we responded in unison, just like in the old days when he was a child and we tucked him into bed. The call ended abruptly. The cell phone screen returned to normal, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the tears in David's eyes confirmed that he had heard it too. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't madness. Somehow, our son was contacting us from the afterlife. What do we do now? I asked, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. David stood up, pacing around the room, the analytical engineer's brain clearly working at full speed. We need to be methodical. First, establish the facts. What do we know for sure? We know Ethan died 15 years ago. We know we buried him. We know that somehow he's conscious and managed to call us. And what does that mean? David rubbed his face, suddenly looking much older. It's impossible for him to be alive in the casket, Sarah, after 15 years. I know. I shivered at the thought of the implications. So, what? A ghost? A lost soul? Some kind of residual consciousness? David had always been the more skeptical one of us, a man of science who believed only in what he could see and touch. Seeing him now, considering supernatural possibilities, showed how much that call had affected him. I don't know, but I know we need help. He grabbed his phone. I'm calling Andrew. Dr. Andrew Miller, David's best friend since college, a forensic pathologist who worked at the county morgue, someone who would understand the scientific aspects of the situation. Do you think it's a good idea to involve more people? I questioned nervously. What if he thinks we're crazy? Andrew knows me well enough to know I wouldn't invent something like this. David was already dialing. We need someone who understands the scientific part, and also, we're going to need some kind of authorization to exhume the body. The word exhumation made my stomach churn. The idea of digging up Ethan, of seeing what was left of him after 15 years, was too disturbing. Do you really think we should do that? I asked, my voice low. David looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen in years. If that were you in his place, trapped somewhere between life and death, wouldn't you want us to do everything in our power to help you? He was right. If there was any chance of helping our son, we needed to try, no matter how disturbing the idea. Dr. Miller arrived shortly after, promising to immediately start the process for the exhumation authorization. David decided to stay with me, setting up on the living room sofa. It was strange having him back in the house we shared for so many years, the house where we raised our son, the house he abandoned when the grief became unbearable. Night fell, bringing with it a darkness that seemed denser, more oppressive than usual. Neither of us could sleep. We stayed in the living room, David on the sofa, me in the armchair, the silence heavy between us, broken only by the occasional noise of the city outside. You still keep his things, don't you? David asked suddenly, looking toward the hallway leading to Ethan's room. Yes, I admitted. I didn't change anything. He nodded non-judgmentally. I can see. I led him down the hallway to the room that had remained untouched for 15 years. I opened the door slowly, as if fearing to wake someone. The smell of wood and stopped time greeted us. The curtains were drawn, but I turned on the light, revealing the sanctuary I had built for my son. The bed was still made with the Batman blanket he loved, even though it was a childish thing for a 17-year-old. The desk with school books piled up, an unfinished math assignment in the open notebook, posters of rock bands on the walls, a pair of worn sneakers next to the bed, the guitar in the corner covered in dust, silenced by time. David stood in the doorway, absorbing everything. I saw his hands tremble slightly. You accused me of moving on too fast, he said softly. Maybe you're right, but maybe it's because I couldn't do this. I couldn't preserve the memories the way you did. He walked slowly through the room, touching the objects with reverence. He stopped in front of the trophy shelf. Swimming, chess, science competitions. Ethan was always a brilliant boy, destined for great things. A life abruptly interrupted before it could fully bloom. Look at this. David picked up a small black notebook from a half-open desk drawer. His journal. My heart raced. I never had the courage to read it. Me neither. He held the notebook carefully, as if it were a precious artifact. Maybe we should now. Maybe there's something here that can help us understand. We sat on Ethan's bed, side by side, the journal between us. With trembling fingers, David opened to the first page. January 10th, 2010, he read aloud. I had that dream again, the one about the accident, so real I woke up in a cold sweat. In the dream, I'm riding my bike in the rain. I see the headlights approaching. I feel the impact. Then I float above everything, watching my own broken body on the asphalt. It's terrifying, but also strangely peaceful. We exchanged alarmed glances. The description of the dream matched exactly the accident that would take his life 2 months later. A chill ran down my spine. David continued reading, carefully turning the pages. The entries described the daily life of a normal teenager. Exams, friends, the girl he liked, fights with his parents. But there was something else. Something disturbing that recurred in several entries. Dreams about his own death. Always the same scenario, always the same feeling of observing from outside. March 1st, 2010, David read, his voice choked. Only 10 days before the accident, the dream got more intense. This time I saw the funeral. I saw Mom crying over my casket. I saw Dad trying to be strong but crumbling when he thought no one was watching. I saw my friends standing in a circle, not knowing what to say. It's so vivid that I'm starting to wonder if they're really dreams or something more. Premonitions, warnings. I'm scared, but also curious. My breath hitched. Ethan had dreamed of his own death, of his own funeral, weeks before it happened. He knew, I mumbled, stunned. Somehow, he knew what was going to happen. David turned to the last entry. It was dated March 10th, 2010, the day of the accident. Today is the day. I don't know how I'm so sure, but I am. Last night's dream was so real that I can still feel the impact, the metal tearing my skin, the bones breaking. I should be terrified, but strangely I'm not. It's like it's inevitable, like it was destined. If anything happens to me today, I want Mom and Dad to know that I love them more than anything, and I also want them to know that it's not going to be the end. Somehow I'm going to find a way back to them. I'm going to find a way to tell them I'm okay, that I just changed form. P.S. If I'm right, please bury my cell phone with me. It might sound weird, but I have a feeling I'm going to need it. The journal fell from David's hands. The silence that followed was dense, loaded with impossible implications. He knew, I repeated, my voice barely audible. They weren't just dreams. He saw the future and knew that somehow one day he was going to contact us. The cell phone, David murmured. He asked to be buried with the phone because he knew he was going to use it to communicate with us. The understanding of what was happening began to form in our minds. Still hazy, still incomplete, but with clearer contours. Ethan had somehow foreseen his own death, prepared for it, and now 15 years later he was fulfilling his promise to find a way back to us. As if responding to our thoughts, my cell phone rang. The name Ethan flashed on the screen. We answered together, David leaning in to listen. Ethan, I called out, my heart pounding. Mom, Dad. His voice sounded different now, firmer, more confident. You're in my room, aren't you? You just read my journal. I froze in shock. How? How do you know that? I can see you, he replied calmly. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I'm in two places at once. I'm still here in the dark, but I can also observe, just like in the dreams I used to have. David took the phone, his eyes wide with shock. Ethan, are you saying you can see us right now at this moment? Yes. Mom is wearing that blue blouse I gave her for Mother's Day many years ago. You're holding my state championship swimming trophy. It was true. David had just picked up the trophy from the shelf as we spoke. There was no way Ethan could know that unless he could truly see us. My God, David whispered, this is terrifying. I know, Ethan completed. It is for me too. I'm learning to control this. At first it was just darkness, but now it's like I can project my consciousness outward, see things, hear things. Can you see other people besides us? I asked, trying to understand the scope of this impossible ability. Yes, I can see Andrew at the police station right now filling out forms. They're processing the exhumation, aren't they? A chill ran down my spine. How did he know about Andrew? How did he know about the exhumation? Ethan, what is happening to you? David asked, his voice trembling. Are you dead? Alive what? There was a pause before the answer. I don't know exactly. My body is here, but it's not alive in the normal sense. It's preserved somehow, as if time stopped for it, but my consciousness is somewhere else, in many places at once. This is impossible, David murmured, the rational engineer, struggling against the supernatural evidence. Many things are impossible until they happen, Ethan replied gently. Mom always said that, remember? It was true. It was one of my favorite phrases when Ethan was little and said something was impossible. Son, I asked, trying to make sense of it all. Why now? Why wait 15 years to contact us? I didn't wait. His voice sounded almost surprised. For me, it was like waking up from a long sleep. I didn't realize so much time had passed, but now that I'm awake, I can feel time differently. I can see what I lost. I can see how much you suffered, and I can see that maybe I can come back. Come back? David and I spoke in unison. What does that mean? I'm not sure, Ethan admitted, but I know you need to open the grave. I need you to get me out of there. There's something that needs to be done, something I can't explain yet, like an instinct. David and I looked at each other, terrified and hopeful at the same time. The idea of Ethan returning somehow was as impossible as it was wonderful. We're trying, son, David guaranteed. Andrew is taking care of the paperwork for the exhumation, but it might take days, maybe a week. It's too late, Ethan's voice replied, urgent. The connection is strengthening, but it's temporary. I feel there is a window of opportunity. If we miss it, I might not be able to come back. How much time do we have? I asked, desperation growing. 3 days, maybe less. It's hard to explain, but I can feel it like a tide that rises and falls. I'm at the peak now, but soon it will start to ebb. David stood up, determined. I'm going to talk to Andrew. We're going to speed up the process. If we don't get authorization in time. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood what he meant. We would do whatever was necessary, legal or not. There's something else, Ethan continued, his voice suddenly serious. I'm not alone here. There are others like me, people trapped between worlds. Some are confused, scared, others are angry. Not all of them have good intentions. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? Some want to come back for the wrong reasons, revenge, obsession, power if they find a way back, like I'm trying to do. It would be dangerous. David concluded, his face grave. I'm trying to hold them back, to block the path, but I'm getting tired. I don't know how much longer I can. The implication was clear and terrible. Our son wasn't just trying to find a way back to us. He was serving as some kind of guardian, preventing other spirits with dark intentions from escaping. How can we help? I asked, determination replacing fear. Just get me out of there, he replied. The rest I can try to solve when we are reunited somehow. The call began to fail. Ethan's voice was choppy with static. I'm losing connection, battery dying. Ethan, I screamed into the phone. Hold on, we're coming for you. I know you will. His voice was only a whisper now. I love you so much. And then silence. The call had dropped. David was already on the phone calling Andrew. He spoke fast, urgently, explaining the need to accelerate the process. I watched him, a new determination growing within me. If bureaucracy didn't work in time, we would take matters into our own hands. The next 24 hours were a race against time. Andrew used all his influence at the morgue and the police department to expedite the authorization. David mobilized former work colleagues, some with political connections. I stayed home, waiting for new calls from Ethan, the phone always within reach, the volume at maximum. He didn't call again that day, nor the next. Anxiety grew with every passing hour. Andrew assured us that the authorization would be issued in 48 hours, fast by bureaucratic standards, but still potentially too late, according to Ethan's warning. On the morning of the third day, David and Andrew arrived with news. The authorization will be issued this afternoon, Andrew explained, his face tired from lack of sleep. They scheduled the exhumation for tomorrow morning. It's too late, I replied, remembering Ethan's warning. He said 3 days at most. Today is the third day. David and Andrew exchanged meaningful glances. We have an alternative plan. David spoke in a low voice, as if afraid of being overheard. It's not legal, but the cemetery caretaker, Andrew completed. Mr. Thompson, he agreed to let us in tonight after closing. He'll bring the necessary equipment. We'll do everything discreetly. And afterwards, I asked, even if we manage to open the casket, what will we do? We can't just take whatever we find in there. One step at a time, David replied. First, we need to see what's inside, understand what Ethan meant by coming back. We spent the day in a state of contained anxiety, preparing for the night. Andrew brought dark clothing for everyone, flashlights, tools. David prepared a car with fake documents in case we were stopped by the police. I packed food, water, and blankets, acting more out of maternal instinct than logic. At 10 p.m., the cemetery had been closed for an hour. We drove in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. Mr. Thompson was waiting for us at the back gate, his face somber but determined. I have everything ready, he said softly. The tools are hidden near the grave. No one comes here at this hour, but we need to be fast and quiet. The cemetery at night was a completely different place. Shadows seemed to move among the graves, and the silence was broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the whisper of light leaves in the wind. We followed Mr. Thompson along side paths, avoiding the main trails where the moonlight made us more visible. Ethan's grave under the big oak seemed to be waiting for us. Beside it, hidden under bushes, was a small hydraulic shovel, the kind used for minor construction in restricted spaces. "I borrowed it from the maintenance crew," Mr. Thompson explained. "It will save us hours of manual labor." Andrew and David immediately set to work, operating the small machine carefully to minimize noise. The soil over Ethan's grave was compact after 15 years, but the machine cut through it with surprising efficiency. I stood guard, my eyes alert for any movement, my ears sharp for any sound that didn't belong to the night. My cell phone was in my pocket, silent, but ready for any new contact attempt from Ethan. After nearly an hour of work, the hydraulic shovel hit something solid. The sound of the machine against wood made my heart jump. "The casket," David announced in a whisper, stopping the machine. "Now we need to work by hand." The three men grabbed manual shovels and began carefully clearing the dirt around the casket, revealing its contours. I moved closer, unable to stay away at that crucial moment. The casket was in good condition, protected by the dry earth. "It's a good one," Mr. Thompson murmured. "Treated wood, sealed against moisture, explains why it's so well preserved." When they had finally cleared enough dirt to expose the entire lid, David and Andrew positioned themselves on either side. "Ready?" David asked, looking at each of us. I nodded, unable to speak. Andrew took a deep breath, preparing for whatever we might find. Mr. Thompson made the sign of the cross. Together, the two men lifted the casket lid. The smell that escaped was not the decomposition we feared, but a strange, almost medicinal odor. A soft, bluish light emanated from within, illuminating the surprised faces of the men. I pushed my way between them to see. Nothing could have prepared me for the sight that awaited me. Ethan was there, his body perfectly preserved, as if he had been buried yesterday. There were no signs of decomposition, no sign of the 15 years that had passed. His face looked asleep, serene. He wore the same dark suit from the funeral, his hands crossed over his chest. Beneath them, glowing with that strange bluish light, was his old cell phone. "My God," Andrew murmured, the scientist in him struggling to comprehend the impossible before his eyes. "This can't be real. There should only be bones." David reached out a trembling hand, touching our son's face. "He's warm, not cold like a corpse, nor hot like a living person, just warm." The sight was so surreal, so beyond any known logic or science, that for a moment none of us could move. It was as if time had been suspended inside that casket, preserving Ethan exactly as he was on the day of his funeral. Slowly, I moved forward and touched his face. His skin was firm, elastic, like that of a living person, but there was no pulse, no visible breathing. Just that strange, in-between temperature, neither alive nor dead. "The cell phone," I pointed out. "It's glowing." It was true. The small blue Nokia under his hands was emitting that unnatural light that illuminated the inside of the casket. As I leaned in to touch it, the screen lit up on its own, displaying a message. "Get me out of here. Take me home. I have little time." We didn't hesitate. David and Andrew, with Mr. Thompson's help, carefully removed Ethan's body from the casket. He was lighter than he should have been, as if the matter of his body had been partially replaced by something less dense, less physical. Together, we wrapped Ethan in the blanket I had brought and carried him back to the car. The cell phone in his hand continued to glow, now pulsing like a heart, the rhythm accelerating as we drove away from the cemetery. No one spoke during the drive. What could we say in the face of something so far beyond our comprehension? We decided to take him to my house, the house where he grew up, the last place he lived. It felt right. Andrew and Mr. Thompson helped us carry him inside, placing him gently in his own bed, in the room that had remained untouched for 15 years. "I've never seen anything like it in my entire career," Andrew muttered, still examining Ethan's motionless body. "There are no conventional vital signs, but there is also no rigor mortis or any sign of decomposition. It's as if he's in a completely different state of matter." The cell phone in Ethan's hand flashed again, displaying a new message: water, sunlight, music. We looked at each other confusedly until I understood. He was telling us what he needed. I quickly brought a glass of water and pressed it against his lips. To our surprise, he seemed to absorb the liquid, though there was no movement in his throat. I opened the curtains, allowing the moonlight to bathe his face. David found the old radio on the nightstand and turned it on to a station playing classical music, the kind Ethan always liked. The cell phone flashed again. "Thank you. Now I need to rest. Tomorrow." Andrew and Mr. Thompson left shortly after, promising to return in the morning. Both swore to keep silent about what they had witnessed. David and I remained in Ethan's room, one on each side of the bed, watching our son in his impossible state, neither alive nor dead. "What happens now?" I whispered, holding Ethan's inert yet strangely warm hand. David shook his head. "I don't know. We're in uncharted territory, but he asked to be brought home and we did it. Now we need to trust him." We spent the night in silent vigil. At some point, I fell asleep in the chair next to the bed. I dreamed of Ethan, not the teenager I had lost, but an adult man, as he would have been if he had lived. In the dream, he smiled and said, "It's almost time, Mom, just a little longer." I woke up at dawn with a strange buzzing filling the room. David had also woken up, looking around confusedly. The source of the sound was Ethan's cell phone, which was now glowing intensely, the bluish light pulsing at an ever faster rhythm. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Ethan's body began to change. His skin, which had been deathly pale, gained color. His fingers, previously rigid, moved slightly. His eyes, closed for 15 years, trembled under the lids as if in a deep sleep. "David," I whispered, grabbing his hand. "Something is happening." The buzzing intensified, becoming almost unbearable. The phone's light expanded, enveloping Ethan's entire body in a cocoon beside him. For one terrible moment, I thought he might be disintegrating, vanishing before our eyes. But then I realized he was transforming. The teenage face softened, the contours subtly changing, aging. The body beneath the funeral suit seemed to fill out, gaining mass and height. It was like watching 15 years pass in a matter of minutes. Time reclaiming its normal course, accelerated. And then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The buzzing silenced. The light retracted to the cell phone before turning off completely. The room returned to normal, lit only by the rising sun. Ethan opened his eyes. They were no longer the eyes of a 17-year-old boy, but the eyes of a 32-year-old man, the age he would be now. His face had changed, matured, though it was still unmistakably him. His body had grown, making the funeral suit tight in the shoulders and short at the wrists. "Mom!" His voice was deeper, more serious. "Dad!" We fell upon him in a desperate embrace, tears flowing freely. It was impossible. It was a miracle. It was our son returning from the dead, not as a ghost or a zombie, but as a living, whole man who seemed to have lived every one of the 15 years he had missed. "How?" That was all David could say, holding Ethan's face between his hands, examining him with wonder-filled eyes. Ethan smiled, an adult smile with the expression lines at the corners of his eyes that weren't there before. "It's complicated. I don't fully understand it myself." He tried to sit up, and we helped him, noticing how he moved with the caution of someone who hadn't used his body in a long time. "Time works differently on the other side," he continued. "It's not linear like here. I lived many lives there. I learned things. I grew up when I realized there was a way back that I could return if the conditions were right." He looked at the cell phone, now plain and ordinary in his hand. "This was the link, the connection I maintained with this world. And you were the lighthouse that guided me back." "But how is this possible?" I asked, still incapable of fully believing the miracle before me. "Your science doesn't have words for this yet," Ethan replied gently. "Parallel dimensions, perhaps, or alternative states of consciousness. The important thing is that I'm here. I came back. Not exactly as I was, but..." He looked at his own hands, now larger, stronger, with small scars and calluses that weren't there before. "This body reflects the experiences I had there. The growth, the learning, as if I lived these 15 years in another place." David, ever the pragmatic one, was already thinking about the implications. "How are we going to explain this? Legally, you're dead. You don't exist in the system." Ethan smiled again. We'll have time to figure that out. Andrew can help. Maybe a story about mistaken identity, amnesia, something like that. The important thing is that I'm back." His face suddenly grew serious. "But I'm not the only one who found the way. Others are trying to follow, just as I warned. Not all of them have good intentions." "What can we do?" I asked. "For now, nothing. I sealed the portal behind me as best I could, but we need to be vigilant." He looked out the window at the world outside, a world he hadn't seen in 15 years. "So many things have changed. I have a lot to learn about this life again." In the days that followed, we watched in wonder as Ethan readapted to life. His body functioned perfectly, though sometimes he seemed clumsy, as if he were learning to use muscles that had been dormant for a long time. His mind was sharp, absorbing information with impressive speed, adapting to the technological and social changes of the last 15 years. Andrew helped with the legal part, creating an elaborate story of mistaken identity and prolonged amnesia. It wasn't perfect, but with his connections and a little manipulation of records, he managed to establish a new identity for Ethan, not as someone resurrected from the dead, but as someone who never truly died. As for me, I went from grieving mother to the mother of an adult son in a matter of days. It was strange, disorienting, and wonderful. Ethan was no longer the boy I lost, but a complex man with knowledge and skills that transcended his earthly education. Sometimes I would find him gazing at the horizon with a distant expression, as if he were seeing things none of us could comprehend. In those moments, I realized that part of him was still connected to the other side, the mysterious place where his consciousness had resided for 15 years. One night, sitting on the porch watching the stars, I asked him if he missed that place. "Sometimes," he admitted. "It was peaceful there in a way, without physical limitations, without the weight of linear time, but something essential was missing." "What?" I asked. He smiled, that smile that was both familiar and new. "This. Humanity, connection, the beauty of being alive with all its imperfections and challenges. It's worth being here, even knowing that one day I'll have to leave again." I held his hand, larger, stronger, more callous than the hand of the boy I buried, yet still unmistakably my son's hand. "When that day comes, I'll be ready to let you go," I promised. "This time, I'll know it's not goodbye forever." Ethan nodded, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of someone who had lived between worlds. "It's never goodbye forever, Mom. Only see you soon." I buried my son 15 years ago. I visited his grave religiously every Sunday. I kept his room intact as a sanctuary to his memory. And then, on an ordinary night, my phone rang with a call from the beyond. Today, he is sitting beside me, not as the boy I lost, but as the man he became on another plane of existence. Death, I learned, is not the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a new and extraordinary journey. Now, if you enjoyed this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left your jaw dropped. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos that I don't publish here. I'll wait for you there.